The lens cap slipped from my trembling fingers, clattering against the concrete floor of the warehouse. I'd been crouched in this position for 47 minutes. I'd counted every single one, waiting for the perfect shot of the supposedly abandoned building that my source insisted was a front for money laundering. My thighs burned with the effort of staying still. My lower back ached from the weight of my camera bag, and the Chicago winter had seeped through my boots until I could barely feel my toes anymore. This was my life now. Hope Martinez, not O'Neill, never O'Neill again. Freelance photographer who specialized in the kind of investigative work that paid just enough to cover rent on a studio apartment in Logan Square, and kept me too busy to think about the past I'd left rotting in Rosary 3 years ago. I retrieved the lens cap, my fingers clumsy with cold, and checked my camera settings for the 100th time. The light was finally right. That perfect golden hour glow filtering through the grimy windows, casting long shadows that would make even this hellhole look almost artistic. I needed 3 more shots to complete the series for the Tribune, and then I could go home, take a scalding shower, and pretend that my hands weren't shaking from something other than the cold. The vibration of my phone nearly made me drop the camera. I swore under my breath, always silent, always careful not to draw attention, and pulled it from my pocket. Unknown number, Chicago area code. I let it go to voicemail, as I did with most calls these days. The fewer connections, the safer. But then it buzzed again. Same number. Then again. My stomach tightened with a familiar dread, the kind that had become my constant companion since leaving Rosary. I answered on the 4th ring, keeping my voice low. Martinez. Ms. Martinez. This is Detective Chen, Chicago PD. I'm calling about... I hung up before she could finish. The police didn't call with good news, and I'd learned the hard way that getting involved with any kind of law enforcement, even as a witness or informant, meant questions. Questions led to background checks. Background checks led to Rosary. And Rosary led to everything I'd spent 3 years running from. The warehouse suddenly felt too small, too exposed. I packed my camera with practiced efficiency, my movements automatic from years of leaving places quickly. It was only when I stood that I noticed the black SUV idling across the street, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. It hadn't been there when I arrived. My heart kicked against my ribs, hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. I forced myself to walk, not run, toward the exit. The SUV didn't move. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe... Hope O'Neill. The voice came from behind me, and I froze. Nobody in Chicago knew that name. Nobody. I'd been so careful, had changed everything. My last name, my social media, even my goddamn hair color from honey blonde to dark auburn. I'd erased Hope O'Neill from existence. I turned slowly, one hand already reaching for the pepper spray in my bag, and found myself looking at a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, expensive suit barely visible under his open coat, the kind of face that was meant to be forgettable except for the eyes. Those eyes had seen things, done things. I knew that look. I'd grown up around men who wore it like armor. "You have the wrong person," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. "My name is Martinez." "Sure it is." His smile didn't reach those dead eyes. "Just like Tyler Scott is just another fighter on the circuit, right?" The name hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled back a step, my shoulder hitting the brick wall behind me. Tyler. Tyler Scott. The boy I'd loved. The boy I'd destroyed. The boy who was supposed to stay buried in Rosary along with everything else. "I don't know anyone by that name." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. "That's funny, because he sure as hell knows you." The man took a step closer, and I saw the outline of a gun under his jacket. "In fact, he's been looking for you for a while now, and Tyler Scott. When he wants to find someone, he finds them." My mind raced through possibilities, through escape routes, through the 9 different ways this conversation could end badly. What does he want? To talk. Another step closer. That's all. Just a conversation. And if I don't want to talk? His smile widened, and I saw the threat beneath it. I don't think you understand the situation, Ms. O'Neill. This isn't a request. Tyler doesn't make requests anymore. He makes arrangements. The words hung in the cold air between us, heavy with implication. I thought of the hope I used to be, the girl who'd been fearless, who'd climbed out of her bedroom window at night to meet Tyler in the old textile mill, who'd believed love could conquer anything. That girl was dead. She'd died 3 years ago on a blood-stained concrete floor, holding Tyler's broken body while her grandfather's men stood watch. But the woman I'd become? She knew how to survive. Where? The word came out stronger than I felt. The cage. Tomorrow night. 10 o'clock. Come alone, or don't come at all. He handed me a card. Plain white. Nothing but an address in Pilsen. And Ms. O'Neill? Tyler's not the same kid you left bleeding in Rosary. He's earned his crown. Don't make the mistake of thinking otherwise. He was gone before I could respond, disappearing into the SUV that pulled away so smoothly it might have been a ghost. I stood there in the gathering dusk, the card burning in my hand, and felt the carefully constructed walls of my new life beginning to crack. Tyler was here, in Chicago, looking for me. And he thought I'd left him to die. I made it back to my apartment on autopilot, my camera bag hitting the floor with a thud as I deadbolted the door behind me. The studio was barely bigger than my childhood bedroom had been, just a main room with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a closet. But it was mine. Safe, anonymous. Or at least it had been until 5 minutes ago. I pulled out my laptop with shaking hands and did what I should have done the moment I left Rosary. I looked up Tyler Scott. The search results made my blood run cold. Tyler Chaos King Scott, undefeated underground fighter, 27 wins, 0 losses, wanted in 3 states for organizing illegal fighting rings, suspected ties to organized crime, last known location, Chicago, Illinois. The photos were worse than the headlines. Tyler, my Tyler, the boy who'd kissed me gentle, who'd held me like I was something precious, stared back at me from the screen with eyes that held nothing but violence. His face was harder, scarred across his left cheekbone and down his jaw. His body had transformed from lean teenage muscle to something altogether more dangerous. He looked like what he'd become. A weapon. I clicked through image after image, each one worse than the last. Tyler covered in blood, his fist raised in victory. Tyler surrounded by men who looked like they ate fear for breakfast. Tyler accepting a championship belt from someone whose face was blurred out, but whose reputation I knew. Marcus the Butcher Volkov, one of Chicago's most notorious crime bosses. My Tyler, except he wasn't mine anymore, was he? He never had been. Not really. The memories came flooding back. The ones I'd spent 3 years trying to drown with work and distance and sheer force of will. Tyler at 17, teaching me how to throw a punch in case I ever needed to defend myself. Tyler at 18, promising me forever under the stars behind the textile mill. Tyler at 19, holding my hand while we made plans to leave Rosary together. To start fresh somewhere, my grandfather's money and influence couldn't reach us. Tyler at 20, dying on the floor while I begged my grandfather to let me call an ambulance, while his men held me back, while the man I loved bled out, because he'd dared to love me back. Except he hadn't died, had he? He'd survived. And now, he wanted to talk. I slammed the laptop shut and pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. Tomorrow night. The cage. Whatever that was, wherever that was, I'd have to face him. Have to look into those cold, violent eyes and explain the inexplicable. Have to make him understand that I'd saved his life the only way I knew how. by breaking his heart. My phone buzzed again. Different number this time, but I just knew. It was connected. I answered it. Hope O'Neill. Not a question, a statement. A woman's voice, smooth as silk, sharp as glass. I hear you've been summoned to the cage. Who is this? Someone who knows what you did 3 years ago. Someone who knows what your grandfather did. Someone who thinks maybe, just maybe, Tyler Scott deserves to know the truth. A pause. Be careful tomorrow night, Ms. O'Neill. The cage isn't just a place. It's a test. And Tyler? He doesn't forgive easily. The line went dead. I sat there in my darkening apartment, surrounded by the photographs I'd taken of other people's secrets, other people's lies, other people's sins, and realized with perfect, terrible clarity that I'd been running toward this moment since the night I left Rosary. Tyler Scott wanted answers, and I was the only one who could give them to him, even if those answers destroyed us both all over again. Because the truth about that night wasn't just complicated. It was catastrophic. And tomorrow, I'd have to decide. Tell him everything and watch him hate me for it, or stay silent and let him believe the lie that had kept him alive. Either way, the girl who'd loved Tyler Scott with everything she had was gone. But the woman who'd survived her, she was about to walk straight into the lion's den, and God help them both. I didn't sleep, didn't even try. Instead, I spent the night doing what I did best: research. The cage turned out to be exactly what it sounded like: an underground fighting arena in Pilsen, operating out of what used to be a meatpacking plant. The kind of place where money changed hands faster than blood hit the floor, where the rules were simple and brutal, and where Tyler Scott had apparently built his kingdom. My laptop screen glowed in the darkness of my apartment, casting blue light across the wall of research I'd assembled over the past 6 hours. Fight records, news articles, police reports that never quite stuck, witness statements that mysteriously disappeared. Tyler had risen through the underground circuit like a man possessed, leaving broken bones and shattered reputations in his wake. But it was the timeline that made my stomach twist with guilt so sharp I could taste it. 3 months after that night in Rosary, Tyler's first recorded fight. No formal training, no backing, just raw fury and a death wish. He'd won, barely, but he'd won. Then he'd fought again, and again, and again. 27 fights in 3 years. Some lasting minutes, others ending in seconds. All of them brutal. All of them wins. I traced my finger across the scar on my wrist, the thin white line I'd gotten from the broken glass on the warehouse floor that night. Tyler had scars too now. I'd seen them in the photos. But his weren't from accidents. His were from a life spent fighting because fighting was the only thing he had left. Because I'd taken everything else. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. Unknown number. Again. I was starting to collect them like terrible souvenirs. Ms. Martinez, this is Detective Chen again. I really need to speak with you about... I told you. I can't help you. I kept my voice flat. Professional. Give them nothing. It's about Tyler Scott. My finger hovered over the end call button. What about him? He's dangerous, Ms. Martinez. Or should I say, Ms. O'Neill. A pause, weighted with meaning. Yes, we know who you are. We've known for a while. We just didn't understand the connection until now. Ice flooded my veins. There is no connection. Really? Because our intelligence suggests otherwise. You grew up in Rosary together. You dated for, what was it, 2 years? And then suddenly he's nearly beaten to death and you disappear. 3 months later, he surfaces in the underground circuit, building an empire on violence. That's quite a coincidence. Life is full of coincidences, Detective. Not like this. Her voice hardened. Tyler Scott is a suspect in multiple felony assaults. He's connected to organized crime, illegal gambling, and suspected in at least 2 disappearances. Whatever hold he has over you, whatever history you share, it's not worth protecting him. I'm not protecting anyone. The lie came easily now, smooth as glass. I haven't seen Tyler Scott in 3 years. Then you won't mind if we put you under surveillance? For your own protection, of course. My hand tightened on the phone. Am I being charged with something? Not yet. Then this conversation is over. Don't call this number again. I hung up before she could respond, but the damage was done. The police knew about Tyler and me. They knew about Rosary. And if they knew, then my carefully constructed anonymity was already compromised. I had maybe hours before this whole thing exploded in my face. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. I tried to work, tried to edit the photos from yesterday's shoot, but my hands shook too badly to hold the mouse steady. Every car that passed on the street below made me jump. Every notification on my phone sent my pulse racing. At 4 p.m., a package arrived. No return address. Just my name, Hope O'Neill, written in block letters that made my skin crawl. Inside was a single photograph. It took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. The image was grainy, taken from a distance but clear enough. Me, 3 months ago, standing outside the Tribune building. The date stamp in the corner made my blood run cold. November 15th. 3 months ago. Tyler had known where I was for 3 months. He'd been watching me for 3 months. Beneath the photo was a note, handwritten in the same block letters. You've gotten good at hiding, Hope, but you were never good enough. See you tonight. T. I dropped the photo like it was burning me. Tyler hadn't just found me. He'd been studying me, learning my routines, my habits, my life. The thought of him watching me from the shadows, knowing where I lived, where I worked, made my apartment feel suddenly suffocating. I grabbed my phone and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I called a number I'd memorized but never dared to use. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. Well. Hope O'Neill. I was wondering when you'd call. Siobhan. The name came out rough, almost angry. My best friend from Rosary. The only person besides Tyler who'd known all my secrets. How did he find me? Hello to you too. I could hear the smile in her voice, that particular blend of amusement and accusation. 3 years of silence, and that's the first thing you say to me? Siobhan, please. A sigh. He's been looking for you since the day you left. Do you really think you could disappear without him eventually figuring it out? Tyler's not the same kid you knew, Hope. He's got resources now. Money. Connections. And he's got something else too. What? Motivation. The kind that comes from spending 3 years believing the love of your life betrayed him. The words hit like a punch to the gut. I didn't betray him. I saved him. Did you? Siobhan's voice went cold. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you let your grandfather destroy him and then ran away to avoid watching the aftermath. You don't know what happened that night, don't I? I know Tyler ended up in the ICU with a fractured skull, broken ribs, and internal bleeding. I know you disappeared the same night and never looked back. I know your grandfather made it very clear that if Tyler ever came near you again, they'd finish what they started. A pause. What I don't know is why you didn't fight for him, Hope. Why you let them win. Because if I'd fought, Tyler would be dead. The words stuck in my throat, too heavy to voice. It's complicated. It always is with you. Siobhan's voice softened slightly. Look, I'm not calling to judge you. I'm calling to warn you. Tyler's coming for answers, and he won't accept half-truths. He's not going to stop until he understands why you left. And Hope? When he finds out the truth about that night, the whole truth, I don't know if love or hate will win. There's nothing left to win, I said quietly. We're different people now. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you both look like people running from the same ghost. She paused. Be careful tonight. The cage isn't just Tyler's kingdom. It's his jury and executioner. Don't give him a reason to condemn you. The line went dead, leaving me alone with the photograph and the weight of 3 years of secrets. At 9:15 p.m., I stood outside the cage, dressed in dark jeans, combat boots, and a leather jacket that had cost me a week's pay, but made me feel slightly less vulnerable. The building looked exactly as abandoned as it should, all broken windows and rusted metal siding. But the line of expensive cars parked along the street told a different story. This was where Chicago's underworld came to play. The man at the door, a different man than yesterday, but cut from the same cloth, looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. Name: Hope O'Neill. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe respect, maybe pity. He's waiting for you, 2nd floor. Follow the sound of the crowd. I didn't need to follow the sound. I could feel it, a low rumble that vibrated through the concrete walls, punctuated by roars that sounded almost inhuman. The smell hit me as I climbed the stairs. Sweat, blood, money, and desperation all mixed together into something that made my stomach turn. The 2nd floor opened into a massive space that must have once held conveyor belts and machinery. Now it held something else. A chain-link cage in the center, surrounded by bleachers filled with people who looked like they'd kill you for $1 and wouldn't lose sleep over it. And in the center of it all, in the cage, stood Tyler Scott. He was mid-fight, his opponent a mountain of a man who outweighed him by at least 50 pounds. But Tyler moved like water, like violence made fluid, every punch calculated, every dodge precise. I watched, frozen at the top of the stairs, as he systematically dismantled his opponent with a brutality that made my breath catch. This wasn't the Tyler I remembered. This was something else entirely. Something forged in pain and rage, and 3 years of believing the worst. The fight ended with Tyler's opponent on the ground, unconscious or dead. I couldn't tell from this distance. The crowd erupted in cheers, money changing hands, adrenaline thick in the air. And then, slowly, deliberately, Tyler turned his head and looked directly at me. Even from across the room, I could feel the weight of that gaze. All that hate, all that hurt, all that history. He stepped out of the cage, his handlers parting like the Red Sea, and began walking toward me. Each step was measured, controlled, a predator closing in on prey that had nowhere left to run. I forced myself to stand still, to not bolt like every instinct screamed at me to do. If I ran now, I'd never stop running. Tyler stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the fresh blood on his knuckles, the old scars on his face, the cold calculation in eyes that used to look at me like I hung the moon. Hope O'Neill, he said, my name sounding like a curse in his mouth. 3 years, and you've barely changed. Still beautiful, still a liar. Tyler, don't. The word cracked like a whip. Don't say my name like you have any right to it. Don't stand there looking at me like you're the victim. We both know what you are. And what am I? I kept my voice steady despite the way my heart hammered against my ribs. His smile was all teeth, no warmth. A coward who ran away rather than face what she'd done. A princess who let her grandfather destroy the man she claimed to love. A ghost who thought she could hide forever. He leaned closer, and I could smell the violence on him, sharp and metallic. But you were wrong about that last part, weren't you? Because I found you. And now we're going to have a conversation about that night. About what really happened. About every lie you told. You think you know what happened? I know enough. I know you stood there and watched while your grandfather's men beat me bloody. I know you left me to die. I know you disappeared without a word, without a call, without a goddamn explanation. His voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. What I don't know is why. And you're going to tell me, Hope. You're going to tell me everything. Or I swear to God, I'll make you wish you'd never been born. The threat hung between us, as real as the blood on his hands. And if I refuse? Tyler's smile widened. Then I'll make your new life as hell as you made mine. Every friend, every client, every safe space you've built in Chicago. I'll tear it all down. I'll burn your world to ash, Hope, just like you did mine. He meant it. I could see it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw, in the way his fists clenched at his sides like he was barely restraining himself from putting them through a wall. Or through me. 1 hour, I said, surprised by how steady my voice came out. 1 hour to explain. And then you let me go. Oh, sweetheart. The endearment dripped with venom. I'm never letting you go. Not until I have every answer, every truth, every secret you've been hoarding. You're mine now, Hope. You've always been mine. And it's time you remembered that. Before I could respond, his hand shot out and gripped my wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. Come with me. We have a lot to discuss. And as he led me through the crowd, past faces that looked at me with curiosity and hunger, toward a door marked Private, I realized with crystal clarity that this wasn't just a confrontation. This was a reckoning. And Tyler Scott didn't take prisoners. He took payment. The question was, what currency would he accept for 3 years of hell? And did I have enough to pay? The private office was exactly what I expected from Tyler's empire. Bare concrete walls, minimal furniture, and a desk that looked like it had survived wars. The only decoration was a punching bag in the corner, stained with what I desperately hoped was just sweat. Tyler released my wrist and moved to lean against the desk, arms crossed, studying me like I was a particularly interesting specimen under glass. His chest still heaved slightly from the fight, and I could see the definition of muscle through his blood-stained shirt. The boy I'd known had been lean and hungry. The man before me was something carved from violence. Sit. He gestured to a metal folding chair. I'll stand. It wasn't a request. Something dark flickered in his eyes. But then, you never were good at following orders, were you? That's what got us into this mess. I sat, if only to avoid the fight that was brewing in the air between us. What do you want to know? Everything. Tyler pushed off the desk and began to pace, a predator wearing a path in the cage. But let's start with the basics. Why that night? We were going to leave together. We had a plan. And then suddenly your grandfather's men show up at the mill, and you're with them. The memory crashed over me like a wave. The textile mill, abandoned for years, had been our place, where we'd stolen hours away from Rosary's judgment, where Tyler had promised me a future that didn't include my grandfather's money or his expectations, where I'd believed, for a brief and beautiful moment, that love was enough. I didn't bring them there, I said quietly. I never would have. Then how did they know? Tyler's voice rose. How did they know exactly where to find us? Exactly when we'd be there? Unless you told them, Hope. Unless you betrayed me. I didn't. The words stuck in my throat, 3 years of guilt choking them off. It's complicated. Complicated. He laughed, bitter and sharp. That's your explanation? 3 years of thinking you set me up, 3 years of hating you, 3 years of building myself into something that could never be hurt like that again. And all you can say is, it's complicated? I stood, unable to sit while he raged. You want the truth? Fine. My grandfather had us followed. Had probably been following us for months. waiting for the right moment to make his move. That night, he told me either I came with him quietly or you'd leave in a body bag. Tyler went still. Dangerously still. So you made a choice. I made the only choice I could. My voice broke, and I hated myself for it. I went with him. I thought if I cooperated, if I agreed to never see you again, he'd let you live. How noble. The words dripped with sarcasm. And the beating? Was that part of the deal too? I flinched. No, that was punishment. For corrupting me. For thinking he could touch what belonged to the O'Neill family. So they beat me until I couldn't stand, until I was choking on my own blood, until I was sure I was dying, and you just watched. I begged them to stop. The memory made bile rise in my throat. I screamed until my voice gave out. I tried to get to you, to help you, but they held me back. And when it was finally over, when you were unconscious and bleeding, my grandfather leaned close and whispered in my ear, "If you ever try to see him again, we'll finish the job." Tyler's jaw clenched. And you believed him. Of course I believed him. You don't know what he's capable of, what he's done to people who crossed him. There are bodies, Tyler. Actual bodies. People who challenged him, who threatened his empire, who dared to love the wrong person. I took a step closer. I watched him order your death, and I knew that the only way to keep you alive was to disappear completely, to make him think I'd given up, that you weren't worth it, that I'd move on. So you left me there, bleeding and broken, without a word. I called an ambulance the second we were far enough away. I made sure you'd be found, that you'd get help. My voice dropped to a whisper. I saved your life, Tyler. No. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, and suddenly he was there, inches away, his presence overwhelming. You saved yourself. You chose the easy way out. You let your grandfather control you like he's controlled everything else in your miserable, privileged life. The slap came before I could think, my palm connecting with his cheek with a crack that echoed in the small room. We both froze, shocked. Tyler's hand came up to his face, touching the red mark blooming there, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw the boy I'd loved underneath the violence. The boy who'd taught me to be brave. The boy who'd promised me the world. You think I wanted that life? My voice shook with 3 years of suppressed rage. You think I enjoyed being Hope O'Neill? Perfect granddaughter, heir to blood money and corruption? I hated it, Tyler. I hated every second of being who I was supposed to be. The only time I felt real was with you. Then why didn't you fight harder? The question came out raw, vulnerable. Why didn't you find a way back to me? Because every day I stayed away was another day you got to live. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Every day was another day my grandfather thought I'd moved on, that you weren't a threat anymore. If I'd come back, if I'd tried to find you, he would have killed you. No warning, no second chance, just dead. Tyler turned away, his hand raking through his hair in a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. So you sacrificed us both. You damned me to this. He gestured around the office, at the empire built on violence. And you damned yourself to a life of hiding. Yes. That's not love, Hope. That's cowardice dressed up as nobility. Maybe it is. I moved to stand beside him, close enough to feel the heat radiating off him, far enough that we weren't touching. But it kept you alive. And in the end, that was all that mattered to me. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the war playing out behind his eyes. Hate and hurt and something else. Something that looked dangerously like the ghost of what we'd been. I built all of this. he said quietly. To become someone your grandfather couldn't touch. Someone powerful enough that if he ever came for me again, I'd destroy him. Someone who could protect you if you ever came back. A bitter laugh. Turns out I built it all for nothing. You were never coming back, were you? I thought about it. The admission cost me. Every single day I thought about calling you, finding you, explaining. But then I'd remember the look on your face when they were beating you. The way you screamed my name, the way the light left your eyes. And I knew that even if you forgave me, even if you understood, we could never go back to who we were. No, Tyler agreed. We can't. Because that Hope and that Tyler, they're dead. They died in that textile mill 3 years ago. Then what are we now? He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. Survivors, ghosts, 2 people who loved each other once and destroyed each other trying to save what we had. His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. The question is, what do we do now? You tell me. You're the one who brought me here. I brought you here for answers. I got them. His hand finally made contact, fingers trailing along my jaw in a touch that was equal parts gentle and threatening. But answers don't change what happened. Don't erase 3 years of thinking you betrayed me. Don't make me trust you again. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm not asking for anything. Aren't you? Tyler leaned closer, and I could smell the copper tang of blood, the salt of sweat, the ghost of the cologne he used to wear when we were young. Because it seems to me like you're asking for absolution, for me to tell you that you made the right choice, that sacrificing us was noble, that I forgive you. Do you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Forgive me? Tyler's smile was sad, broken. I don't know yet. Ask me again after I figure out if love or hate wins. The words hung between us, weighted with possibility and threat in equal measure. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled away, the moment shattering, and checked the screen. His expression darkened. What? Your grandfather. Tyler turned the phone so I could see the message. Just 5 words, but they made my blood run cold. I know where she is. Terror, sharp and immediate, flooded my system. How did he? Because Rosary isn't the only place he has eyes. Tyler's jaw clenched. And because I wasn't careful enough. I should have known he'd be watching for any sign of you surfacing. What does this mean? Tyler looked at me, and for the first time since I'd walked into the cage, I saw something other than hate in his eyes. I saw the same protective fury that had once made him fight 3 guys who'd insulted me, that had made him promise to keep me safe no matter what. It means, he said slowly, that you're not safe anymore. Not in Chicago. Not anywhere. Unless... He stopped, something calculating crossing his face. Unless what? Unless you let me protect you. Stay close, where I can watch over you, where my people can keep you safe. I laughed, but it came out broken. You mean where you can keep me prisoner, where I can't run again? Can you blame me? Tyler's voice was hard. You ran once. What's to stop you from running again the second things get difficult? I told you why I ran. You told me a story. I still don't know if I believe it. He moved closer, invading my space again, his presence overwhelming. So here's the deal, Hope. You stay with me under my protection until I figure out what to do about your grandfather. And in exchange, you tell me everything. Every secret. Every lie. Every moment of the past 3 years. Complete transparency. And if I refuse? Tyler's smile was all predator. Then you leave here and hope your grandfather's men are feeling merciful. Spoiler alert, they're not. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him I didn't need his protection. that I'd been surviving just fine on my own for 3 years. But we both knew it was a lie. Alone, I was vulnerable. With Tyler, I at least had a chance. Even if that chance came with the price of facing everything I'd been running from. Fine. The word came out sharp. But I have conditions. Of course you do. He leaned against the desk again, arms crossed. Let's hear them. I'm not your prisoner. I can leave whenever I want. Denied. You leave when I say you can leave. Tyler, next condition. I gritted my teeth. I get my own space, my own room. You don't get to control every aspect of my life. Granted, though I'll be installing security measures. And you don't get to interrogate me 24/7. I'll answer your questions, but on my terms. Tyler considered this, his gaze never leaving mine. Acceptable, with one addition of my own. What? You don't lie to me, not even by omission. If I ask a question, you answer truthfully. No more secrets, Hope. No more running. He pushed off the desk and closed the distance between us. Can you do that? Can you be completely, brutally honest with me, even if it hurts? Could I? Could I tell him about the nights I'd cried myself to sleep thinking about him? About the ways my grandfather had threatened me to keep me in line? About the guilt that ate at me every single day, knowing Tyler was out there hating me? About the fact that despite everything, despite the violence and the rage and the 3 years of silence, I'd never stopped loving him. Yes, I whispered. I can do that. Then we have a deal. Tyler extended his hand, formal and strange after everything we'd just said to each other. I took it, his palm warm and calloused against mine. The touch sent electricity up my arm, familiar and foreign all at once. Welcome back to hell, Hope O'Neill, Tyler said softly. Let's see if we can survive each other this time. As he led me out of the office, past the crowds that parted for him like he was royalty, toward a future I couldn't begin to imagine, I realized something that should have terrified me, but instead felt almost like relief. I was Tyler Scott's now. Again. Still. Always. And this time, there was nowhere left to run. Tyler's apartment was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd expected cold concrete and minimalist brutality, a space that matched the violence of the cage. Instead, I found myself standing in a converted loft in River North, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. The furniture was expensive but understated. Leather sofas, a kitchen with professional-grade appliances, artwork that probably cost more than my annual salary. It was beautiful, and it felt exactly like what it was, a cage with better decor. Guest room is through there. Tyler gestured to a hallway, his tone clipped and professional, as if we were strangers instead of two people whose histories were so tangled we might never separate them. Bathrooms attached. There's clothes in the closet, various sizes. Something should fit. I turned to stare at him. You just have women's clothes in random sizes lying around? I have resources. He shrugged, moving to the kitchen and pulling out a bottle of whiskey. When I decided to find you, I prepared for multiple scenarios. This was one of them. The casualness with which he admitted to planning for my return, or my capture, more accurately, should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange sort of resignation settling into my bones. Tyler had spent 3 years building himself into someone who could control everything around him. Of course he'd prepared for this. How long have you known where I was? I asked, following him but keeping the kitchen island between us. Safety and distance. 5 months. He poured 2 fingers of whiskey, then a second glass without asking if I wanted one. Took me 2.5 years to track you down. You covered your trail well. New name, new identity, cash-only transactions for the first year. Smart. But not smart enough. Nobody's that smart. He slid 1 glass across the counter toward me. I have people everywhere, Hope. In the DMV, in banks, in police departments. Someone eventually slips. Someone always does. I didn't touch the whiskey. 5 months. You've been watching me for 5 months and only now decided to make contact? I needed to be sure. Of what? Tyler's eyes met mine over his glass. That you weren't bait. That your grandfather hadn't planted you in Chicago, waiting for me to surface. That you were really trying to hide from him and not from me. The implication stung. You thought I was working with him? I thought a lot of things. He drank, the movement smooth and practiced. Most of them dark, some of them true. But I watched you, Hope. I watched you work yourself to exhaustion for pennies. I watched you jump at shadows. I watched you look over your shoulder every time you left your apartment. His voice softened, just slightly. And I started to wonder if maybe you'd been telling the truth about that night. Something twisted in my chest, painful and hot. But you still don't believe me. I believe pieces of it. Tyler set down his glass with deliberate care. I believe your grandfather threatened me. I believe you were scared. What I don't believe is that running was the only option. What I don't believe is that you couldn't have found another way. There was no other way. There's always another way. His voice hardened. You just weren't brave enough to find it. The accusation landed like a physical blow. I grabbed the whiskey and drank it in one burning swallow, needing something, anything, to push down the rage and guilt and grief all warring inside me. You don't get to judge me for the choices I made to keep you alive. Don't I? Tyler moved around the island, closing the distance between us with that predatory grace I was starting to recognize. You made those choices without consulting me, without giving me a say in my own life. You decided what I could handle, what I deserved to know, and then you left me to figure it out alone. Because you would have done something stupid and gotten yourself killed. Maybe. He was close enough now that I could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes, could smell the whiskey on his breath. Or maybe I would have found a way to protect us both. But we'll never know, will we? Because you didn't trust me enough to try. The truth of it hit me like a sledgehammer. He was right. I'd made every decision based on fear. Fear of my grandfather, fear of what he'd do, fear of losing Tyler. But in trying to save him, I'd taken away his agency, his choice, his right to fight for us. I'm sorry. The words came out broken. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry for everything. Tyler studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he did something unexpected. He reached up and touched my face, his calloused fingers gentle against my cheek. I don't want your apologies, Hope. I want the truth. All of it. Starting with why your grandfather is contacting me now, 3 years later. The touch sent electricity through my system, familiar and dangerous. I forced myself to step back, breaking the contact. I don't know. I haven't had any contact with him since I left Rosary. But you know him better than anyone. What's he playing at? I moved to the windows, needing distance to think clearly. The Chicago River glittered below, dark and serpentine. My grandfather doesn't do anything without a reason. If he's reaching out to you now, it means something's changed. Something that makes me valuable again. Like what? I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the heated apartment. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not good. For either of us. Tyler's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. Speaking of not good. He turned the screen toward me. It was a photo. Me, walking into my apartment building 2 weeks ago. The angle suggested it had been taken from a car across the street. Below the image was a message. Beautiful granddaughter you have, O'Neill. Would be a shame if something happened to her. We should talk. MV. Who's MV? I asked, though something about the initials made my stomach clench with recognition. Marcus Volkov. Tyler's jaw tightened. The butcher. Chicago's most charming sociopath and my current employer. The name sent ice through my veins. Marcus Volkov was a legend in criminal circles. Russian mob, suspected in dozens of murders, untouchable by law enforcement. You work for him? I fight in his arena. He takes a cut. I get protection and resources. Tyler's eyes never left the phone. But this is him making a move, reminding me that he knows about you, that he could get to you if he wanted. Why would he care about me? Because he knows what you mean to me. Tyler finally looked up, and the raw vulnerability in his gaze made my breath catch. Or what you used to mean to me. And in his world, that makes you leverage. The realization settled over me like a shroud. I've put you in danger. Just by existing, just by being found, I've made you vulnerable. No. Tyler crossed to me, his movements deliberate. Your grandfather made me vulnerable the night he tried to kill me. Volkov is just capitalizing on it. But here's the thing, Hope. I'm not the same kid who got beaten bloody in a textile mill. I've got power now, resources, men who'd kill for me. But not enough to protect against Volkov and my grandfather working together. Not alone, no. He leaned against the window frame beside me, close, but not touching. Which is why we need to be smart about this. Why you need to stay here, where I can keep eyes on you 24/7. You mean where you can control me. Control, protect. In this case, they're the same thing. Tyler's voice was firm. I'm not letting anyone touch you, Hope. Not Volkov, not your grandfather, not anyone. Whatever else is broken between us, that much hasn't changed. I wanted to argue, wanted to insist I could take care of myself, but we both knew it was a lie. Alone, I was a target. With Tyler, I at least had a fighting chance. What are the rules? I asked finally. If I'm staying here, under your protection, what does that mean? Tyler considered this. You don't leave the building without me or one of my men. You don't contact anyone from Rosary. No friends, no family, nobody who might leak information. You keep your phone on you at all times, and you answer when I call. That's a prison. That's survival. His voice softened slightly. I know it's not what you want, but it's what we have right now. Until I can neutralize the threats, until I can figure out what your grandfather and Volkov are planning, you're safer locked down tight. And what do you get out of this? The question came out sharper than I intended. Besides the satisfaction of having me exactly where you want me? Tyler turned to face me fully, his expression unreadable. I get to make sure you don't disappear again. I get to prove to myself that keeping you safe matters more than hating you for leaving. And maybe, I get to figure out if there's anything left of what we had, or if it's all just ashes now. The honesty in his voice made my throat tight. This wasn't just about protection. It was about Tyler trying to reconcile the girl he'd loved with the woman who'd destroyed him. About second chances and old wounds and whether love could survive being buried alive. And if there's nothing left, I had to ask. If all that's left is hurt and anger and guilt, then at least we'll know. Tyler reached out, his fingers catching a strand of my hair, tucking it behind my ear in a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. At least we'll have tried. Before I could respond, a knock at the door shattered the moment. Tyler's entire demeanor changed, going from vulnerable to lethal in a heartbeat. His hand moved to the small of his back, where I now noticed the outline of a gun tucked into his waistband. Stay here. His voice was all command now. Don't move until I tell you. He crossed to the door with that fluid violence I was starting to recognize, checking the peephole before visibly relaxing. He opened the door to reveal a woman, late 20s, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing tactical gear that suggested she was more than just a friendly visitor. "Boss." She nodded to Tyler. Then her eyes found me. "This her?" "Yeah." Tyler stepped aside to let her in. "Hope, this is Sienna. She's head of my security detail. She'll be coordinating your protection." Sienna looked me up and down with the kind of assessment that made me feel like a piece of equipment being evaluated. "Volkov's already got people watching the building. I've got counter-surveillance in place, but we need to move her to a more secure location." "No." Tyler's voice was firm. "She stays here. Beef up security if you need to, but I want her where I can see her." Something passed between them. Some unspoken communication I wasn't privy to. Finally, Sienna nodded. "Your call. But if this goes sideways, it won't." After Sienna left with orders to triple the security detail, Tyler turned back to me. The vulnerability from before was gone, replaced by the hardened fighter I was coming to know. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning our next move." "What move?" His smile was cold. "The one where I remind your grandfather and Volkov exactly why they should fear me. The one where I prove that Hope O'Neill isn't leverage. She's off limits. The one where I burn down anyone who tries to touch what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "I'm not yours, Tyler." He crossed to me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Keep telling yourself that, sweetheart. But we both know it's a lie. You've been mine since the moment I saw you sneaking cigarettes behind the school when we were 16. You were mine when you climbed out your window to meet me. You were mine when you let me touch you, kiss you, love you." His hand came up to cup my face. "And you're mine now, even if you hate me for it. Even if I hate myself for still wanting you." "Tyler." He kissed me before I could finish. Not gentle, not tentative, but hard and desperate and full of 3 years of rage and longing. I should have pushed him away. Should have reminded him that we were broken, that too much had happened, that some wounds don't heal. Instead, I kissed him back. It was like falling into fire, hot and dangerous and impossible to escape. His hands tangled in my hair, his body pressing mine against the window, and for just a moment, we weren't the people we'd become. We were Hope and Tyler, 2 kids from Rosary who'd loved each other stupid and paid the price. Tyler pulled away first, his breathing ragged, his eyes dark with desire and something more complicated. That was a mistake. Probably. My voice was steadier than I felt. It can't happen again. No, not until I figure out if I forgive you. I understand. We stood there, inches apart, both of us breathing hard, both of us lying through our teeth. Because that kiss hadn't been a mistake. It had been inevitable, and it would definitely happen again. Tyler stepped back, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Your room is through there. Lock the door if you want. Not that it'll keep me out if I decide to come in." "You wouldn't. Don't test me, Hope. You might not like what you find." He left me standing there, disappeared into what I assumed was his own bedroom, leaving me alone with the taste of whiskey and regret on my lips. I made my way to the guest room, found it exactly as promised. Spacious, comfortable, with a closet full of clothes in my size. Everything I could need. Everything except freedom. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried not to think about Tyler sleeping down the hall. Tried not to remember the way his hands felt in my hair, the way his mouth moved against mine, the way my body had responded like it remembered something my mind refused to acknowledge. I tried not to think about the fact that for the first time in 3 years, I felt almost safe, even if that safety came with a price I wasn't sure I could afford. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. The message was just 3 words. He's coming for you. No signature, no context, just a warning that made my blood run cold. I stared at those words until they blurred, until sleep finally claimed me, until I dreamed of textile mills and blood on concrete, and Tyler's voice calling my name like a prayer and a curse all at once. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow would bring plans. But tonight, I was Tyler Scott's, prisoner, protected, or something in between that had no name yet. And God help us both. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of voices in the living room. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Forgot the past 3 years. Forgot Chicago. Forgot everything except the muscle memory of waking up safe. Then reality crashed back, and I remembered. Tyler. Protection. Prison. The digital clock on the nightstand read 7:43 a.m. I'd slept for 6 hours, the most uninterrupted sleep I'd had since leaving Rosary. My body felt heavy with it, reluctant to face whatever came next. I found clothes in the closet, dark jeans that fit perfectly, a soft gray sweater, boots that looked expensive but practical. Someone had thought of everything. The realization made my skin crawl with the reminder of how thoroughly Tyler had prepared for this. When I emerged, I found Tyler in the kitchen with 2 men I didn't recognize. One was older, maybe 50, with silver threading through dark hair, and the kind of face that had seen violence and decided to make it a career. The other was younger, lean and wired, with the look of someone who never quite stopped moving. All 3 turned when I entered. Tyler's eyes swept over me, something unreadable flickering across his face before he shuttered it. Hope, this is Declan. He gestured to the older man. He handles my business interests, and that's Connor, my second at the cage. Declan extended a hand, his grip firm but not aggressive. Ms. O'Neill, I've heard a great deal about you. Nothing good, I'm sure. His smile was slight. Nothing simple, certainly, but Tyler's business is his own. Connor just nodded, his eyes sharp and assessing. I got the distinct impression he was cataloging my weaknesses, figuring out how quickly he could take me down if necessary. It should have scared me. Instead, it reminded me of my grandfather's men. All business, no sentiment. I'd grown up around predators. I knew how to move among them. Coffee? Tyler offered, already pouring before I could answer. He handed me a mug, our fingers brushing in the exchange. The touch sent electricity up my arm, unwelcome and unavoidable. We were just discussing your grandfather, Declan said, pulling up something on his tablet. Interesting man. Patrick O'Neill. Built his textile empire from nothing, owns half of Rosary's real estate and has his fingers in more pies than we can count. And probably controls the other half through shell companies and blackmail, I added. My grandfather doesn't believe in leaving loose ends. Like you. Connor spoke for the first time, his voice carrying a slight Irish lilt that reminded me uncomfortably of home. Like me, I agreed. I'm the loosest of ends. The one that got away. Tyler leaned against the counter, coffee in hand. Tell them about the night you left, what he said to you. The memory made my stomach turn. He said I had a choice. Disappear completely, change my name, never contact Tyler again, or watch him die. Not quickly, not cleanly, but slowly, painfully, as an example to anyone else who thought they could touch O'Neill property. He called you property? Connor's voice was sharp with distaste. He calls everyone property. That's how he sees the world. Things he owns and things he's going to own. I took a sip of coffee, needing something to do with my hands. I was supposed to marry someone suitable, someone from one of the old Rosary families, someone who would expand his empire, not threaten it. And Tyler was a threat, Declan surmised. Tyler was everything my grandfather hated. Poor Irish, from the wrong side of town. Worse than that, he made me happy. made me think I could have a life outside the one my grandfather had planned. I looked at Tyler, found him watching me with those unreadable gray eyes. That was unforgivable. But he didn't kill you, Connor pointed out. He let you go. Why? It was the question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. Because dead, I'm a martyr. Missing, I'm just a disappointment. And my grandfather can spin disappointment. Tell people I ran off with some boy, proved I wasn't worthy of the family name. It protects his image better than a funeral would. Tyler set down his coffee with deliberate care. Show them. I knew what he meant. The texts. The proof that my grandfather hadn't just let me go. He'd been tracking me this whole time, waiting for the perfect moment to reel me back in. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the messages I'd been receiving for months. They started innocuous enough. Hope, come home, all is forgiven. Then darker. You can't hide forever. Chicago suits you, but winter's coming. I always know where my family is. And finally, from 2 days ago, Tyler Scott. Interesting choice. I suppose history does repeat itself. Declan studied the messages, his expression grim. He's been watching you both, probably for months, which means he knows you're together. Connor looked between us, which means this is exactly what he wanted. The realization hit me like ice water. It's a trap. He wanted me to find Tyler, wanted us together so he could, what? Finish what he started. Or use you against each other. Tyler's voice was hard. If he can make me choose between protecting you and protecting my empire, he wins either way. Then we don't let him make us choose. The words came out stronger than I felt. We end this, once and for all. How? Connor asked. The man's untouchable. He's got judges, cops, politicians. Everyone in Rosary is either bought or scared. Not everyone. I met Tyler's eyes. There's one person who might help us. Someone who knows where all the bodies are buried because she helped bury them. Understanding dawned on Tyler's face. Siobhan. My best friend. My grandfather's goddaughter. The one person who'd been caught between loyalty to family and loyalty to me. The one person who might know enough to take him down. She won't betray him, Tyler said. But I heard the question underneath. She might, if she thought it would save me. I pulled up her number, stared at it like it was a loaded gun. 3 years ago, she helped me disappear. She drove me to the bus station, gave me cash, told me to never look back. Maybe she's been waiting for me to come back and fight. Or maybe she's been reporting to your grandfather this whole time, Connor warned. That's a hell of a risk. Everything about this is a risk. I looked at Tyler. But if we want to end this, we need leverage. We need dirt on my grandfather so damning he can't spin it. So catastrophic that even his connections can't save him. Declan nodded slowly. It's not a bad play. If this Siobhan can get us evidence, financial records, proof of criminal activity, anything that ties him to verifiable crimes, we can take it to the feds. Get him investigated on a federal level where his local influence means less. And while he's fighting that, Tyler added, his mind clearly working through the angles, we dismantle his empire piece by piece, his businesses, his properties, his reputation. We burn it all down until there's nothing left. The plan was brutal, risky, exactly the kind of thing that could get us all killed. It was also our only shot. I'll call her. I dialed before I could second-guess myself. Siobhan answered on the third ring. Hope. Not a question. She'd been expecting this. I heard Tyler found you. You could say that, or you could say I walked into his cage willingly. Funny. That's not how your grandfather tells it. He says Tyler kidnapped you, that you're in danger. I laughed, bitter and sharp. And you believe him? A pause. No, but I needed to hear your voice. Needed to know you're okay. I'm not okay, Siobhan. I won't be okay until he can't hurt us anymore. And I need your help to make that happen. Silence on the other end. Long enough that I thought she might have hung up. Then, what do you need? Hope bloomed in my chest, painful and bright. Everything. Every dirty secret. Every buried body. Every crime he's committed that you know about. I need enough evidence to bury him so deep he never sees daylight again. That's a tall order, Hope. He's covered his tracks well. But not perfectly. Nobody's perfect. And you've been his right hand for 10 years. You know things. Another pause. I'll need time. To gather what I have. To make copies without him noticing. A week. Maybe 2. We don't have 2 weeks. Tyler spoke up, loud enough for Siobhan to hear. Patrick contacted Marcus Volkov. They're planning something. We need to move fast. Tyler Scott. Siobhan's voice changed, became sharper. The boy who got beaten half to death and came back as the Chaos King. Patrick talks about you sometimes, mostly with regret that he didn't finish the job. The feeling's mutual. Tyler's voice was ice, but right now we're on the same side. We both want Patrick O'Neill destroyed. Do we? Siobhan asked. Or do you just want Hope back, and this is the price you're willing to pay? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. I looked at Tyler, wondering the same thing. Was this about justice? Or was it about possession? About proving he could protect what was his? Both, Tyler admitted, his eyes never leaving mine. I want Patrick to pay for what he did, and I want Hope safe. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. No, Siobhan agreed. They're not. Okay, I'll start gathering what I can. But Hope, you need to understand something. When this starts, when we move against your grandfather, there's no going back. He'll know you betrayed him. He'll come after you with everything he has. Let him. The words came out fierce. I've been running for 3 years. I'm done being scared. Brave girl. There was approval in Siobhan's voice and something else. Pride, maybe. I always knew you had it in you. Call me in 3 days. I'll have something by then. The line went dead. I looked at Tyler, at Declan, at Connor. 3 men who were now invested in taking down one of the most powerful men in Massachusetts. 3 men who were doing this, at least in part, for me. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. Tyler moved closer, his hand coming up to cup my face. The gesture was gentle, intimate in a way that made breathing difficult. Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning. By the time we're done, your old life won't just be gone. It'll be scorched earth. No going back to Rosary. No reconciliation with your grandfather. You'll be cut off from everything you grew up with. Good. I leaned into his touch despite myself. I never wanted that life anyway. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You say that now. But when the dust settles, when Patrick's empire is ashes, you might feel different. I won't. Promise? The question was weighted with something more than words. I promise. Tyler studied my face for a long moment, searching for something. Then he did something that surprised me. He pressed his forehead to mine, his breath warm against my lips. Don't make me regret believing you, he whispered. I can't survive being wrong about you twice. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He pulled away, checked the screen, and every muscle in his body went tense. It's Volkov. The room went silent. Tyler answered on speaker. Tyler, my boy. Marcus Volkov's voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of a Russian accent. I hear you've acquired something valuable. Or should I say someone? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. Hope O'Neill, Patrick's wayward granddaughter, the girl who ran away from home and broke your heart. A pause. I must say, I admire your dedication. 3 years of looking for her. That's true love, or true obsession. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Tyler's jaw clenched. What do you want, Marcus? What I always want. Opportunity. See, Patrick contacted me with a proposition. He wants his granddaughter back, wants to have a conversation with her about family loyalty, and he's willing to pay handsomely for her safe return. My blood ran cold. Tyler's eyes found mine, dark with barely controlled rage. She's not for sale. Everything's for sale, Tyler. Even loyalty. Even love. Volkov's voice hardened. But I'm a reasonable man. Instead of taking Patrick's offer, I'm giving you a chance to make a counteroffer. What's Hope O'Neill worth to you? The question hung in the air, poisonous. Name your price. Interesting. I could hear the smile in Volkov's voice. How about this? You fight for me. 5 matches. 5 opponents of my choosing. You win them all. Hope stays with you, and Patrick gets nothing. You lose even one, and she goes back to Rosary. No. The word exploded from me. Tyler, don't. He held up a hand, silencing me. And if I refuse to fight? Then Patrick's men come for her tonight, and I won't stop them. In fact, I'll help them. After all, I'm a businessman. I go with the highest bidder. Tyler's expression was murderous. 5 fights, all wins, and Hope stays with me permanently. No more deals, no more offers. She's off limits. Agreed. First fight is tomorrow night. I'll send you the details. Volkov paused. Oh, and Tyler? Patrick's already here, in Chicago, watching. So do try to put on a good show. The line went dead. The room erupted, Connor swearing in Gaelic, Declan already pulling up fight records, strategizing. Tyler standing perfectly still, his hands clenched into fists, violence radiating off him in waves. And me, realizing with crystal clarity that this had been the plan all along. My grandfather had orchestrated everything, Tyler finding me, Volkov's involvement, the fights. All of it designed to either break Tyler or bring me back under his control. We can run, I said desperately. Leave Chicago. Leave the country. Start over somewhere he can't find us. There is nowhere he can't find us. Tyler's voice was flat. You know that. He found you once. He'll find you again. Then what do we do? Tyler turned to look at me, and the determination in his eyes was absolute. I fight. I win. And then we destroy him together. Tyler? No. He crossed to me, his hands gripping my shoulders. No more running, Hope. No more hiding. We end this, once and for all, even if it kills me. That's what I'm afraid of. My voice broke. I can't watch you die for me. Not again. You won't. His grip gentled, became almost tender. Because I'm not that kid anymore. I'm the Chaos King. I'm undefeated, and I don't lose. But even as he said it, I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes. Because 5 fights in quick succession, against opponents Volkov would choose specifically to break him, those were suicide odds, and we both knew it. My grandfather was betting that Tyler's love for me, or his hate, it didn't really matter which, would make him vulnerable, would make him reckless. And standing there, with Tyler's hands on my shoulders and his gray eyes full of determination and desperation, I realized something terrible. My grandfather might be right. The first fight came 24 hours later. Not enough time to prepare, not enough time to strategize, barely enough time to breathe. That was the point. Volkov wanted Tyler exhausted, rattled, vulnerable. He wanted him to break. I stood at the edge of the cage, pressed against the chain-link fence, watching Tyler warm up. His body moved with lethal precision. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Each punch a promise of violence. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched between combinations. He was scared. Not of the fight, of losing me. He's going to get himself killed. Sienna appeared beside me, her expression grim. Volkov's first opponent is Sergei Volkov, Marcus's nephew, ex-Spetsnaz, killed 3 men in the ring before they banned him from sanctioned fights. My stomach turned. Tyler can beat him. Maybe, if he's lucky, if he doesn't make mistakes. She turned to look at me. But you're a distraction, Hope, and distractions get people killed in that cage. Then what am I supposed to do? Leave. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. The voice came from behind me. I spun to find my grandfather standing there, flanked by 2 of his men. Patrick O'Neill looked exactly as I remembered. Silver hair, perfectly styled. Custom suit worth more than most people's cars. Eyes cold as winter. Come home, Hope. End this before Tyler gets hurt. You mean before he beats your pet monster? I kept my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? You can't stand that Tyler survived, that he became something you couldn't control. I can control everything. Patrick stepped closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. Including you. You think Tyler Scott can protect you? He's 1 fight away from the hospital, maybe the morgue. All because you're too stubborn to accept your place. My place? Rage flooded through me, hot and cleansing. My place is wherever I choose it to be. Not in Rosary, not under your control. Never again. Patrick's smile was thin, cruel. We'll see. Tyler has 4 more fights after this one, and each one gets harder. Each one pushes him closer to breaking. How long do you think his love can sustain him, Hope? How long before he realizes you're not worth dying for? The words hit like physical blows. Before I could respond, the bell rang. Tyler's first fight was starting. Sergei Volkov was a monster. 6'5", 250 pounds of muscle and bad intentions. He moved like something prehistoric, all power and rage. The crowd roared as he entered the cage, bloodlust thick in the air. Tyler looked small by comparison. Lean where Sergei was massive. Quick where Sergei was brutal. But I'd seen Tyler fight before. Knew what he was capable of when everything was on the line. The fight started with Sergei charging forward like a bull. Tyler sidestepped, landing a quick combination to the ribs. Fast, precise. But Sergei barely flinched. He swung a haymaker that would have decapitated Tyler if it had connected. Tyler ducked, came up with an uppercut that snapped Sergei's head back. Blood. First blood. The crowd went wild, but Sergei just smiled. What followed was 3 rounds of the most brutal violence I'd ever witnessed. Sergei was a wrecking ball, each punch capable of ending the fight. Tyler was lightning, darting in and out, landing shots, avoiding the worst. But avoiding wasn't enough. He needed a knockout. Needed to prove he could still win when everything mattered. In the 3rd round, Tyler took a hit. A glancing blow to the temple that sent him staggering. Sergei smelled blood, pressed forward. The crowd was screaming. My grandfather was smiling. And Tyler. Tyler looked at me through the chain-link fence, our eyes meeting across the chaos. I saw the question there. Is this worth it? Are you worth it? I nodded. Once. Firm. Tyler's expression hardened. He planted his feet, stopped retreating, and met Sergei's charge head-on. It was suicide. It was beautiful. Tyler slipped inside Sergei's guard, landed a brutal combination to the body, then came up with a hook that caught Sergei perfectly on the jaw. The giant went down like a felled tree. The referee counted. 10 seconds that felt like eternity. When he hit 10, the cage erupted. Tyler had won. He stumbled to the fence where I stood, blood running from a cut above his eye, his face already swelling. "One down," he said, his voice rough. "4 to go." "Tyler, don't." He pressed his forehead against the fence, as close as we could get with the chain link between us. "Don't tell me to stop. Don't tell me it's not worth it. I'm seeing this through." "I know." I reached through the fence, my fingers finding his. "Just don't die. Please don't die." "Not planning on it." He squeezed my hand, then pulled away as his team surrounded him, already preparing for the next fight. I turned to find my grandfather gone, but I knew he'd be back. He always came back. The next 3 fights happened over 3 nights, each one more brutal than the last. Volkov chose his opponents carefully, a submission specialist who nearly snapped Tyler's arm, a Muay Thai champion who turned Tyler's ribs into a kaleidoscope of bruises, a ground-and-pound wrestler who almost choked him unconscious. Tyler won them all, barely, bloodied and broken but still standing. By the 5th fight, he could barely walk without wincing. His face was a mess of cuts and bruises. His body was held together by tape and painkillers and sheer stubbornness. And still, he fought. The 5th opponent was the worst. Connor, the Reaper, McGrath. A fighter Tyler knew, had trained with, had considered a friend. Volkov's final cruelty, making Tyler destroy someone he cared about to keep me. I watched from the same spot I'd occupied for 4 nights, my hands gripping the fence until my knuckles went white. Connor entered the cage, his expression apologetic. He didn't want this fight any more than Tyler did. But the cage didn't care about want, only about blood. The fight was different from the others, slower, more painful. 2 men who knew each other's styles, each other's weaknesses. Connor could have ended it early, could have gone for the kill. He didn't. He gave Tyler chances, openings. But Tyler was too exhausted to take them, too damaged, too broken. In the 3rd round, Connor had Tyler mounted, fists raining down. The referee was watching closely, ready to call it, and I saw Tyler's eyes, saw him considering just letting it end, letting Connor win, letting me go back to my grandfather because at least then this would stop. I couldn't let that happen. "Tyler!" I screamed his name over the roar of the crowd. "Tyler, look at me!" His eyes found mine through the blood and sweat and pain. "I love you!" The words tore out of me, 3 years of suppressed truth finally breaking free. "I love you, and I'm not going anywhere, so get up and finish this." Something changed in Tyler's face, some last reserve of strength, of will, of pure, stubborn refusal to quit. He bucked Connor off, scrambled to his feet, and when Connor came at him again, Tyler was ready. The knockout came 30 seconds later. Clean. Final. Devastating. Tyler had won all 5 fights. The cage went silent as the implication sank in, then erupted into chaos. Money changing hands, accusations of fixing. Volkov's face was thunderous. And my grandfather was already moving toward the exit, his men around him. "Stop him!" I grabbed Sienna's arm. "Don't let him leave." But it was too late. Patrick O'Neill disappeared into the Chicago night, taking his threats with him. Tyler stumbled out of the cage and into my arms. I caught him, both of us sinking to the floor as his legs gave out. Did I win? His voice was slurred, concussed. Tell me I won. You won. Tears streamed down my face. You won everything. All 5. You're done. Good. He slumped against me. 'Cause I can't fight anymore. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. You don't have to. I held him tighter. You proved your point. Now let me get you help. Declan appeared with a medical team. They took Tyler, and I followed, refusing to let go of his hand even as they loaded him into an ambulance. We rode to the hospital in silence, Tyler drifting in and out of consciousness, me counting every breath to make sure he was still alive. 3 days later, Tyler was released. Concussion, cracked ribs, torn ligaments, but nothing permanent, nothing that wouldn't heal. We returned to his apartment to find Siobhan waiting. "I have it." She held up a flash drive. Everything. Every crime. Every payoff. Every buried body. Enough to put Patrick away for life. I took the drive with shaking hands. "How did you—" "He trusted me." Siobhan's smile was bitter. "That was his mistake. I've been documenting everything for years, waiting for someone to be brave enough to use it. Turns out that someone is you." The next week was a blur. Federal investigators, testimony, evidence presented in courtrooms and to grand juries. Patrick O'Neill's empire began to crumble, one indictment at a time. Tax evasion, money laundering, racketeering, murder. The charges kept coming. And through it all, Tyler and I stayed together. Not as lovers, not yet. Too much was still broken between us, but as allies, as partners in the destruction of everything that had tried to destroy us. Patrick was arrested on a Tuesday morning. I watched it happen from a federal building in Boston, standing beside Tyler, his arm in a sling, but his presence steady. My grandfather looked smaller in handcuffs. Diminished. Just a man, after all, not the monster he'd convinced everyone he was. He looked at me as they led him past. "You've made a terrible mistake, Hope. You'll regret this." "No," I said quietly. "The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." 3 months later, I stood in Tyler's apartment, our apartment now, watching snow fall over Chicago. The cage had closed. Volkov had disappeared, either arrested or fled. Tyler's empire of violence had crumbled, and he'd let it go without a fight. We were broke, relatively speaking. Tyler had some savings. I had my photography. We had each other. It was enough. "You're thinking too loud." Tyler came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. The physical therapy had worked. His ribs had healed. The bruises had faded. But the scars remained. Visible and invisible both. "I'm thinking about the future." I leaned back against him. "About what we do now. Now we live." His breath was warm against my neck. "We figure out who we are when we're not running or fighting or surviving. We try to build something real. And if we can't, then we try anyway." He turned me to face him, his hands cupping my face. "I meant what I said in that cage, Hope. I love you. I never stopped. But I don't know if that's enough. If love can survive everything we've put it through. Then we find out." I rose on my toes, pressing my lips to his. The kiss was gentle, tentative, nothing like the desperate claiming from before. This was a question, not a demand. A beginning, not an ending. When we pulled apart, Tyler smiled. Really smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from him since I'd walked into the cage all those weeks ago. "Okay," he said simply. "Let's find out." And so we did. Day by day. Mistake by mistake. Slowly learning how to love each other without the pressure of survival, without the weight of violence, without anything except the choice to keep choosing each other. It wasn't easy. Some days were harder than others. Some nights I woke up screaming from nightmares of textile mills and blood. Some nights Tyler couldn't sleep at all, his body remembering the cage even when his mind tried to forget. But we survived each other. Again. Still. Always. Because the king of chaos had learned that some debts could only be paid with truth, and the girl who'd run away had finally learned to stand her ground. Together, we were stronger than we'd ever been apart. And that would have to be enough.